Welcome to Morbid Outdoors, the podcast that ventures deep into the shadows of the wild. Here, we unravel the mysteries of missing persons, explore spine-chilling legends, and share the most morbid stories that nature has to offer. From the depths of the dense forests to the highest mountain peaks, we'll uncover the secrets that lie hidden in the great outdoors. Join us as we navigate the eerie, the unexplained, and the terrifying. So if you dare, grab your gear and let's embark on a journey into the unknown. This is Morbid Outdoors. Hello everyone, my name is Elise and I am your host, and I hope that you guys are all having a wonderful start to your new year 2025. Like I said on my last episode, if you're a listener on YouTube, I would really appreciate you going to rate me 5 stars on Apple or Spotify. I would be so appreciative of that. I have big goals for this podcast this year, and any and all reviews help. Well, all positive reviews help. So anyways, it's the second week of 2025. I'm so excited that we've all made it to a new year, and I'm happy to have you listening and grateful for all of your support. So thank you so much. I went on my first hike of 2025. It was beautiful. I was hiking in Mill Creek Canyon outside of Salt Lake. Beautiful day, overcast, didn't need my micro spikes that much, and clocked in like almost 5 miles. And it was just a really nice hike, and one that I'm going to be doing again with a full weighted pack to start training for backpacking this summer. I have a few backpacking trips planned, and I want to make sure I am not absolutely dead because I normally don't carry, 20 pounds on my back. So I am excited to get out there. And if you have like lengthy hikes or backpacking that you're also planning to do this summer, I suggest starting training now. It's always very helpful. And by the time it rolls around, you'll be so glad that you did. So yes, I will be wearing my full weighted pack on shorter trails and looking like a crazy person, but that's just what you got to do to kind of get ready for some lengthy overnighters. So I also read another book I think you guys all might like. It's called Dead of Winter, and the author's name is Darcy. I forgot her last name, but it was a really good read. Very kind of morbid outdoors, thriller, horror, outside, stuck in a cabin. Good book. So definitely check that one out. But let's get into our case today. Let's head out to the morbid outdoors. When a young boy goes missing while near a lookout at Crater Lake National Park, the search to find him starts immediately and is massive. He seemingly ran over a small hill and then was nowhere to be found. Is his case connected to another missing boy from the same area years before? It's been decades and both boys are still missing. So, like I said just now, today's case takes place in Crater Lake National Park. And I actually used to live about an hour and a half away from Crater Lake National Park when I lived in Medford, Oregon on a travel healthcare contract. I love Southern Oregon. I miss it so much. I still talk to the friends I have there, and I'm hoping to go back and visit like within the next year or two. It has a special place in my heart, and I spent a lot of time in Crater Lake and the surrounding national forest camping, hiking and sightseeing. And in fact, I spent the 4th of July, 2022, at Crater Lake National Park. And it was just so awesome to be able to spend that holiday in one of our country's most beautiful national parks. Also, this is not really like a funny story, but the PCT goes through Crater Lake area, and my husband did not want me to give a backpacker a ride, but I did because this was an older gentleman. He was backpacking the PCT and needed a ride up to top of Crater Lake. I have hitchhiked before when I've been backpacking, and I've also given rides. Nothing's wrong with it. I would just have to say, like, be careful if you do. I only give rides to obvious backpackers or skiers, and I would not just hitchhike with anyone. But it's a cool place to visit, and you meet a lot of interesting people in this area of the United States. So let's start with our negative reviews. Someone said, quote, "They should call this place No Crater Lake National Park. I drove into the park today and the road up to the rim was closed. So the staff advised me to drive a few miles up the road and then turn around just to see all the beautiful snow. Tremendous waste of time. I don't know why they keep this park open in the wintertime and don't even plow the road up to the lake, ... sad in all caps, end quote. So yes, Crater Lake is open year round, but they do not plow the road up there. And that's because this is like one of the snowiest places on earth. They get so much snow. And in fact, the first time I visited was before I lived there. So I think it was either 2018 or 2019. And I flew out there with my sister and mom. And we actually snowshoed at Crater Lake National Park. And it was really, really fun. And I remember snowshoeing around like the top of this building. And it was actually a 2-story building. And we were snowshoeing at like the top of it. That's how much snow they get. And that is why they do not plow their roads, because it would be a tremendous task. It would be absolutely insane. Okay, another review says, "Honestly, I think this is my least favorite national park yet. It is a perfect tourist trap with a road going around the perimeter of the lake, a bunch of short hikes for all fitness levels, and to be perfectly honest, I didn't think it was worth spending a whole day there for the lake. Maybe going in the middle of summer when it was rammed with people took away from the beauty, but I just wasn't impressed. Wouldn't recommend, wouldn't return." Another review says, "Crater Lake is a very pretty place, but on a sunny 70-degree Fahrenheit day in October, it was very cold because of the wind. The roads are very narrow with no guardrails with extremely high cliffs. We won't be back." And to that I say, you're in a national park. Someone else's negative review says, "I am scared of heights and when there was no Wi-Fi," with like a mad emoji face. And our last negative review of the day says, "I recently visited Crater Lake Park and was a bit disappointed. While the entry fee is $30, the experience felt somewhat underwhelming. It's similar to the Grand Canyon in that you're mostly just an observer from a distance. You can't even get close to the water, and once you've taken in the view, there's not much else to do." So I don't know if you are aware of this, but you can actually hike down to the water and swim in it. My sister-in-law has done this. It was on my list to do while I was there, but unfortunately I didn't get enough time. And they also have boat tours. So this person just was not very informed about all of the options offered at Crater Lake National Park. Crater Lake National Park is a national park in Southern Oregon. It was established in 1902, and Crater Lake is the 5th oldest national park in the United States and the only national park in the state of Oregon. This park encompasses the caldera of Crater Lake, which is a remnant of Mount Mazama, a destroyed volcano, and all of the surrounding hills and forests. Crater Lake is 1,949 or 594 meters deep at its deepest point, which makes this lake the deepest lake in the United States and the second deepest in North America, and then the 10th deepest in the entire world. This park encompasses over 183,000 acres, and a lot of the park is is forest land. Crater Lake has no streams flowing into it or out of it, and all the water that enters the lake is eventually lost from evaporation or subsurface seepage. The lake's water commonly has a striking blue like color, and the lake is refilled entirely from direct precipitation in the form of snow and rain. So, like I said, they get a lot of snow. This lake is very, very deep, and it's very, very beautiful. It almost looks fake, honestly. According to the Köppen climate classification system, Crater Lake National Park has a dry summer subarctic climate. Snow is relatively rare at low elevations in Western Oregon, but it is super common among higher elevations, especially at Crater Lake. Measurements at the park's headquarters, which are at 6,475 feet, that shows that snow falls more often here than at any other long-term weather station in Oregon. Winter, which usually begins in the park in September and goes through June, includes an average of 101 days of measurable snowfall. And I think when I was up there, they had gotten like 11 feet of snow that year so far, and there was still more snow to come. Now, snow typically accumulates in the park to depths from 10 to 15 feet, and usually that's like by early spring. So most of the park's roads remain closed through the late spring, and snow lingers into the summer. In July and August, snowfall is uncommon, but it could still sometimes happen. You might be thinking since there's so much snow that the lake freezes over, but actually that never happens. So even though snow covers Crater Lake National Park for 8 months of the year, the lake rarely freezes over, due to in part to the relatively mild onshore flow from the Pacific Ocean. And the last recorded year in which the lake was frozen over was a long time ago in 1949, which for this area was a very long and cold winter. In 1985, 95% of the surface did freeze over, but it wasn't a complete freeze over. So also what makes this interesting is that the immense depth of Crater Lake, it kind of acts as a heat reservoir that absorbs and traps the sunlight. So the lake's average temperature is like year round about 55 degrees on the surface and 38 degrees at the bottom. This is like constantly throughout the year. The surface temperature does fluctuate a bit, but the bottom temperature remains quite constant at around 38 degrees Fahrenheit. So Crater Lake National Park has a lot of mammals and bugs and all sorts of wildlife, and a bunch of the popular ones or the more common ones are chipmunks, foxes, squirrels, porcupines. They do have black bears, Canadian lynxes, beavers, badgers, muskrats, martens. And I also, when I was hiking in Southern Oregon, thought I found a wolf paw print. And I did some research online, and yes, there are wolves in Southern Oregon around Crater Lake National Park, which is absolutely insane because I don't feel like that is talked about a lot. But like from what I read online, and this was 3-4 years ago, they do have 2 packs in and around Crater Lake National Park. So just be aware of that if you go hiking alone. Some of the birds that are common include peregrine falcons, ravens, Canada jays, bald eagles, hummingbirds, spotted owls, and sometimes Canadian geese actually float on the lake too. So a little history about Crater Lake National Park. Local indigenous people witnessed the collapse of Mount Mazama and kept the event alive in their legends. One ancient legend of the Klamath people closely parallels the geologic story which emerges from today's scientific research. The legend tells of 2 chiefs, Lao of the below world and Skell of the above world, pitted in a battle which ended up in the destruction of Lao's home, Mount Mazama. The battle was witnessed in the eruption of Mount Mazama and the creation of Crater Lake. Archaeologists have found sandals and other artifacts buried under layers of ash, dust, and pumice from its eruption approximately 7,700 years ago. And to date, there's little evidence indicating that Mount Mazama was a permanent home to indigenous people. However, they do believe it was used as a temporary camping site. Early settlers and explorers did not hear about Crater Lake from the indigenous inhabitants because this place is very sacred to most indigenous peoples of Oregon and Northern California. The Klamath held the belief that this place was so holy that looking upon it would lead to death. There are no stories relating to the crystal blue lake that formed after the eruption, indicating that these people became silent on the issue of Mount Mazama, the mountain that was no longer. I mentioned that legend before, and according to Andrea Langford, author of Haunted Hikes, Spine-Tingling Tales and Trails from North America's National Parks, this is the story of Lao and Skell. They fought gory battles here. Lao ripped Skell's heart from his chest, and Skell retaliated by dismembering Lao and throwing the body parts into the lake. Hideous monsters gobbled up everything but Lao's head, which the lake still holds Lao's spirit. When stirred, he may brew up storm clouds. When angered, he may appear in the form of a giant crayfish that climbs up out of the lake, snatches people off of the rim of the crater that surrounds the lake, and drags them down into the water. And I just want to go back and say, I hope I was pronouncing that right. I don't know if I am, but that name Lao is spelled Llao. And I have never heard it said before, so just be a little gentle with me there. So, who found Crater Lake since the indigenous people were not talking about it or showing the settlers? Well, this is kind of what happened. There were a trio of gold prospectors, John Wesley Hillman, Henry Klippel, and Isaac Skeeters, and they were the first American prospectors to visit the lake. On June 12, 1853, they stumbled upon the long, sloping mountain while hunting for provisions. Now, they were absolutely stunned by the vibrant blue color of the lake, and they named it something very original, Deep Blue Lake. Haha. And the place on the southwest side of the rim where he first saw the lake later became known as Discovery Point. But, gold was more on the minds of the settlers at the time, and the discovery was soon forgotten. They discovered it, it was amazing, but they were really trying to be out there prospecting for gold and getting that money. So the suggested name later fell out of favor by locals who preferred the name Crater Lake. The lake is believed to have no indigenous fish, but several species of fish were introduced in the beginning of 1888 until all fish stocking ended in 1941. Kokanee salmon and rainbow trout now thrive and reproduce here naturally. Like I said, swimming is allowed in the lake, and the boat tours, which stop at Wizard Island, which is a cinder cone inside the lake, they operate daily during the summer. All lake access for people is from Cleetwood Trail, which is very steep, and there are no roads for cars, trucks, or wagons that lead down to the waterfront. The only way you can get there is by hiking down. All of the boats in the lake were delivered by helicopter. So very seriously, there are no watercrafts allowed in the lake except for the ones that the national park manages. And my dad told me that you don't necessarily need a fishing license to fish there. And there's no, and I don't know how true that is, but there's no limit on catching fish because they reproduce here so much and so fast that you can fish in Crater Lake and take home what you got. So it's pretty cool. There are numerous observation points along the caldera rim for the lake, and they're all accessible by car. And the rim, if you're wondering how far or how long that drive is, it's 33 miles around and has an elevation gain of 3,800 feet. Crater Lake National Park offers over 100 miles of hiking trails, and hiking in this national park is absolutely stunning and it's beautiful. And if you ever go, I highly suggest doing as much hiking as you can. The lake is beautiful to see, but hiking through the forest is also it's magical in its own way. I bet you have already heard of our case today, and that's going to be about 8-year-old Sammy Belkey. Sammy went missing in Crater Lake National Park on October 14th, 2006. Samuel Belkey was born on August 10th, 1998, to Kristen Becker and Kenneth Belkey. Sammy had a passionate personality bordering on stubbornness. It's been reported that he had a mild form of autism, which they are saying is Asperger's, but I want to clarify that the DSM-5 no longer recognizes Asperger's as a diagnosis, and now it would just be called autism. And Sammy's form of autism, it's reported that it manifested itself in a fear of loud noises and bright lights, and that he also had an affinity for small spaces. His dad reported that he enjoyed hiking, fishing, and other outdoor pursuits. His favorite foods were root beer, macaroni and cheese, and corn dogs. He loved to play with Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Legos, and Tinker Toys. He sounds just like any other 8-year-old boy who had a passion for life and was just, from what I can read online, was just such a sweet, sweet kid. Sammy and his dad, Kenneth, were visiting Southern Oregon from their home in Portland, and they were staying at a cabin at Diamond Lake, which is not too far from Crater Lake National Park. I've done hiking in the area. It's maybe 20-30 minute drive. They decided to drive around the rim of Crater Lake to see the beauty of the lake and be able to stop and take pictures from those accessible pullouts we were talking about earlier. Now, it's been reported that they stopped to play a game of tag or, we're not really sure, hide and seek near the Cleetwood Cove pullout on the rim of Crater Lake. Now, do I think playing tag or hide and seek in the forest or national park is a good idea? Definitely not, and definitely not with kids. I don't think this was a smart decision to make, and I often wonder why people choose to play these games in wilderness where someone could be easily lost. Now, darkness was approaching, and Ken and Sammy stopped at the pullout at around 4 p.m., which was about 500 yards east of the Cleetwood Cove parking lot, and they were actually walking on the north side of the Rim Drive. Sammy apparently saw a spot of yellow on a hill and thought it was gold and ran over to it. Sam's dad obviously called out for Sammy, and it's stated that Ken went to his car, but Sammy did not come because he was refusing to leave the spot of yellow. Kenneth ran over to him, and Samuel took off up the hill, and Kenneth is stated as saying, "I never caught up with him, and at the point he disappeared over the top somewhere, I lost him," end quote. Sammy disappeared within seconds, and his dad was only seconds behind him. It was noted that Sammy had on a blue winter coat that would be easily visible in this terrain. I did read in source material that he had done a similar thing when he attended the day camp program at the Selwood Community Center. The center's director, Ken Klamath, said, "He liked to hide, and he was good at hide and seek. He wouldn't understand his safety might be in danger if he didn't come out of his hiding place. He does have a tendency to take off, and it doesn't surprise any of us that he got out of the car and took off. It's just a game to him." It was stated that he had played hide and seek at Selwood, and he couldn't be found, which and they are freaking out. These people that work in the community center freaked out. They called the police and the fire service, who also couldn't locate Sammy. Kim said, quote, "We called his mom and she finally screamed, 'Sam, you won. You're the best hider.' And then Sam popped out from behind a tree." And Kim also said that he liked to dig to hide himself. And the reason why I'm stating that is because this has been a point of theory for where Sammy possibly could have gone. But this was not the case on this chilly October evening. Sammy was gone. And after a couple of hours of looking for his son with no luck, Kenneth flagged down a passing car and told them to call 911. He could not find Sammy anywhere. It was like he vanished into thin air. So immediately a search began because time was of the essence, because an 8-year-old was lost in this huge national park. Now, Kenneth actually told searchers that his son has an autistic type behavior, although he'd never been diagnosed with it. See, I found very differing things in the source material. This source said, Ken said he had never been diagnosed, but he probably was. And then other sources say he definitely had autism. So I don't know which is true or correct, but basically, searchers were taking that into consideration when they were looking for him. I just thought it was a little weird because his dad also told searchers that he liked to hide. Just a little weird. So because a child who was autistic went missing, searching immediately started, and everyone thought they would have a good chance of finding 8-year-old Sammy. The search force quickly increased to more than 200 people, and they combed an area of about 6 square miles or 4,000 acres. Searching went on for a week, and they scoured the area with dogs, helicopters, and heat-sensing cameras. But no trace of Sammy was ever found. And officials said a helicopter crew spotted some tracks, but they later turned out to be from wildlife. So everyone was really, really searching for Sammy because of the circumstances and Sammy's personality and temperament and possible diagnosis. But they didn't turn up anything. Like I said, it was like he vanished into thin air. There was intermittent searching that continued after, despite heavy snowfall in the area. This is October. Snow starts to fall in September. And I've been to Crater Lake in October. It's freezing. It's so cold. It's so windy, and snow already starts to fall there. Technical crews searched the slopes leading from the rim down into the water, which is a drop of 700 to 1,000 feet, even though it was unlikely Sammy would have fallen into the lake because of obstacles on the slope like trees and large rocks. So they were even looking where it was most likely impossible that Sammy would be, because they wanted to be as thorough as possible. Search teams included people from Jackson, Klamath, and Deschutes counties, the National Park Service, and from California, Washington, and Oregon. They also called in a specialist rescue team from Mount Hood and Mount Rainier, and local U.S. Forest Service and BLM employees. And when I say BLM, I mean Bureau of Land Management. So this was a multi-agency, huge search operation. The local weather at the time of Sammy's disappearance was cold, wet, and snowy, and everyone knew he could have not survived very long without shelter. Kenneth, Sammy's dad, said that he has camping experience, but has not been trained in wilderness survival. So time was of the essence in this case, like it is in every other case. But when a child goes missing, it usually is all hands on deck ASAP. During the search, Sammy's parents were not allowed to search, and this is the first time I've ever heard of this. And I read online that they were not allowed to search because I think some of the searchers were concerned it would confuse the dogs, which I've never heard of before, but this was back in 2006, so I'm not sure. During the search, his parents were cooped up in a duplex near park headquarters where they got briefings twice daily from search commanders. But like I said, they were not allowed to search. Kenneth is quoted as saying, quote, "I would still rather have gone. Basically, you're just stuck there waiting," end quote. On October 23rd, 2006, the search officially ended, and authorities did not consider foul play to be a factor. Now, just a few short couple of weeks later, in November of 2006, Sammy's family held a memorial service for him, which I also find a little strange. And the reason I find this strange is because this isn't something that we see in true crime, that families have memorial services so soon after someone goes missing, especially a child. So I'm not saying like, oh, that's so weird that they wanted to honor him. No, I'm simply saying this is a little bit bizarre because I don't really see people do this in true crime cases. Now, a lot of people who are familiar with this case, they actually cast suspicions on Kenneth, Sammy's dad. One Redditor said this, quote, "I know, let's play hide and seek in a strange wood close to dark with my autistic son. What's the worst that could happen?" I think this is a cover story. As someone with autistic kids, let me tell you, we think ahead of any danger and we don't mess around with their safety. This story doesn't even make sense. You're not going to pick a dangerous place to play a game where he's out of your sight. I don't care how mild his autism is. If he had aversions to light and sound, it wasn't that mild. I think this child was killed and this was the excuse for his vanishing. I honestly don't think he was ever there," end quote. So that's someone's theory. And there are a lot of theories about Kenneth's involvement and possible involvement in Sammy's disappearance. Another Redditor said this, quote, "Kenneth Belke, the father, killed his son. The boy was never in the park. He was killed that morning and the dad got away with it. What tells me this is the father never went back looking and had Sammy declared dead not long after his disappearance. I think Kenneth's motive was child support and the financial burden of having a special needs child and eventually an adult he would be financially responsible for long into adulthood. Recently divorced and looking at his financial future, he needed an out of the burden associated with Sammy. That's my theory. Anyone think I'm wrong or have another theory? ? If you bring up aliens or Bigfoot, I won't even respond because I deal in reality," end quote. I also heard on another podcast years ago, I cannot remember which podcast, they covered this case and they mentioned the theory of foul play. And, investigators think it was that foul play wasn't involved. But I just don't think we can say for sure it was absolutely not a factor. I think I like to deal in reality too and really think of Occam's razor. But I don't know, something about this case just gives me an unsettled feeling. I do want to say that in some source material, it has been stated that a passing motorist did see Sammy in the national park. I don't know if this is verified by law enforcement, but that's also what I've seen. So either way, I just think there's so many questions that are not answered in Sammy's case. There have been really no updates at all on Sammy's case. Nothing has ever been found, no bones, clothing, etc. And, like I'm saying, this case has always struck me as strange, and I'm not even sure if Sammy is still in Crater Lake National Park. I did hear about Kenneth. Apparently, he still went to search as much as he could every summer, but I did not see that with my own eyes in source material, so I don't know if that is true or not. But if I'm being honest, I think foul play is definitely involved in this case, and it just really, really breaks my heart. Sammy was 8 years old when he went missing. He was 4'8", 85 pounds. He had light brown hair and brown eyes. He was last seen wearing a long-sleeve black and green striped shirt, cargo pants, red suede shoes, and a blue winter coat. He has a mole under his right ear and a mole on the left side of his throat. Now, I do want to mention that Sammy is featured on the National Park Service Cold Cases. Um, yeah, like I said, bizarre case. How does a boy run over a small hill? And yes, it is a small hill. It's not like a giant hill. Run over a small hill and then is never seen again. And they never find bones, shoes, coats, or anything. I just don't know if that's even possible. Sammy's case is sometimes associated with another missing boy from the Crater Lake area from the 90s. You guys probably have not heard of this case, and I don't have a ton of information, but I often, when I think of Sammy, I also think of Derek, James, and Gebretson. Now, Derek was born on July 5th, 1990 in Klamath Falls, Oregon. And on December 5th, 1998, he was also 8 years old at this time. He traveled to Pelican Butte with his father and grandfather near Rocky Point, Oregon. And this area is about 30 miles from their hometown of Klamath Falls and immediately south of Crater Lake National Park. Now, the reason why they were going out in the winter in December is because they were looking for a Christmas tree. And at some point during their excursion, Derek wandered away from his father and grandfather. He was reported missing that evening by his father and grandfather, who notified a passing motorist around 4:13 p.m., and this motorist traveled to a nearby resort about 2 miles away, where he then placed the phone call to 911. Initial searches were completed by foot with search canines as well as aerial searches using a Civil Air Patrol plane and an Air Force Reserve helicopter. So something that they found was a crude shelter made of fir boughs, beneath several fallen logs near the area Derek went missing, but search dogs were unable to detect his scent there. Due to the extreme conditions of the area, law enforcement speculated that Derek would have quickly succumbed to the elements. Derek's parents stated that their son had, quote, grown up in the mountains, end quote, and was used to walking distances of 20 miles in steep terrain. In the hours immediately after Derek's disappearance, his family and law enforcement officers discovered small footprints in the snow, which made a loop from the location where his father had last seen him to a clearing near the road where a snow angel that they presumed Derek left was found. Now, unfortunately, a snow plow obliterated the tracks that led away from the snow angel, and there were no additional footprints that they could find. Several pieces of chopped wood were also discovered nearby where he disappeared. And when Derek disappeared, he actually had a small hatchet with him and was dressed in a snowsuit. So, in the late evening on this day, a blizzard actually hit the area, and it really hampered search efforts. And so, how I understand this to be, they were all walking to find a Christmas tree. Derek got separated. He walked to a clearing near the road, made a snow angel. I mean, he's 8, he thinks he's gonna be found. He made a snow angel. He chopped some wood with his hatchet, and then he, presumably walked away. But because the snow plow plowed the road, there were no other footprints that they could follow to see where Derek might have gone after that. On December 13th, 8 days into the investigation, Klamath County Police suspended their search. This was devastating to Derek's family because they knew that their son might still be alive out there. His family continued independent search efforts and camped at the site in a donated camper van over the next 2 weeks, while hundreds of volunteers continued to organize search efforts. Unfortunately, on December 18th, further search efforts were terminated due to sub-zero temperatures, which made it unsafe for anyone to travel through the area. In the ensuing months, more than 10,000 hours were spent performing ground searches. Obviously, law enforcement officers thought he wandered away, got lost, and died out in the wilderness, But Derek's family did not buy this theory. And actually, early in the investigation, a witness claimed to have seen an unidentified man struggling with a young boy in the area later during the day that Derek disappeared. The witness ignored the event as this person had just assumed that the man was the boy's father. Additional reports were made of an unidentified man driving a two-door Honda, asking passerby for directions in the forest that day. So, more than one person saw this guy. One witness says that he saw this man and a young boy struggling, but didn't think anything of it because he thought that they were probably related as father and son. On September 24th, 1999, graffiti was discovered in a bathroom at the Sage Hen Rest Area, approximately 300 miles south of Portland, and law enforcement identified it as being referential to Derek's disappearance. Derek's parents drove to view the graffiti upon being notified about it, and his mother, Lori, stated to the press, quote, "I think it's just a big, sick joke. I thought, if someone would have had Derek, if they put this on the wall, they would be wanting to be caught. If they were wanting to be caught, why didn't they just leave something of Derek's there?" End quote. The contents of the graffiti were not made public, actually. And in 2008, it was confirmed that Frank James Milligan, a man serving a sentence for raping a 10-year-old boy in Dallas, Oregon, was considered a potential suspect in Derek's disappearance. It's just crazy that he went missing, in 1998, but then 10 years later, they're saying this guy is a suspect. As of 2024, Derek's whereabouts remain unknown. They never found him. They never found the hatchet that he had. They never found shoes or clothing or anything. All the clues and evidence in the search for Derek have been dead ends, including a confession from convicted sex offender Frank Milligan that he later recanted. And after it was recanted, the parents of Derek believed that Frank didn't actually kidnap their son. Like I said, Derek's hatchet to cut down that tree has never been recovered. So it's another case where it's kind of like in the same area. Is there a predator that lives in the area that took Derek and then also took Sammy? That is a stretch. And I'm not saying that's what happened, but 2 8-year-old boys go missing in Crater Lake, National Forest, National Park area. It's just so bizarre, especially because nothing of either child has ever been found. Quote, "I want to believe that he's still alive to this day, and until somebody shows me something different, I don't think I'm ever going to give up on him." End quote. That's a quote from Derek's mom, Lori. Now, Lori believes her son was kidnapped because they think that the small footprints that they found were Derek's, and they think that he actually made it to the road. Now, basically, the sheriff's office says they can't share any theories that the investigators have, but Derek's family is sure he is not on the mountain where he went missing. After Derek went missing, Robert, his dad, went searching for his son every weekend, every day off, whenever he could, for 2 years. Interestingly, I did not see any reporting on if Sammy's family had continued to look for him after his disappearance. Yes, different situations, different people, different children. However, Robert really did look endlessly for his son. And it was just, I don't know, it's just strange. I don't want to be accusatory, but I just think it's very interesting to look and juxtapose these two cases. So that's why I brought up Derek's case along with Sammy's case, because they were the same age at the time of their disappearances. Foul play is usually brought up and suspected, and the geographical location. Now, it really does break my heart that Derek's family still does not have answers 26 years later. And I think more people need to know about Derek's case too. Sammy Belkey is often discussed on true crime and outdoors podcasts, but I really haven't heard anyone talk about Derek's case. Sammy has been missing for 18 years, and Derek has been missing for 26 years, and both cases are unsolved. We can hope that one day the answers are revealed by someone finding the remains, giving their family long-awaited answers. I also found it interesting that there were actually more news reports on Derek's 1998 disappearance than on Sammy's 2006 disappearance. You'd think it would be the other way around because of the internet and ease of access, but I found more information on Derek's case than Sammy's. As always, recreate responsibly, and remember, sometimes the great outdoors aren't always great. Thanks for listening to Morbid Outdoors. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, make sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform. It's free, easy, and it helps us out immensely. When you subscribe, you get updates on our latest episodes, and it also boosts our visibility, making it easier for other curious souls to find us. Another great way to support Morbid Outdoors is by leaving us a review. Whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, a quick review helps us know what you love about the show. Find us on Instagram and Facebook at Morbid Outdoors Podcast. You can email us case suggestions and your campfire stories at morbidoutdoorspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks so much for the support, and I'll see you next time.